I'm Brian V at Why We Work, and I have the great pleasure of being here with Mr. Robert O'Connor. Good day, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
I was just commenting, I'm well, thank you, on that great backdrop. And I think anyone who watches this will hope that they were there with you.
Yeah, yeah. I wish the weather was like that right now.
I wish I was there too.
We're expecting a tropical storm here in the next couple of days, so it's a little, it's the calm before the storm, but it's not sunny out.
In terms of work, Robert, can you give us a rundown, a little history of how you came to where you are now and all the way back from when you were a kid, when you had your first job?
Man, well, it's interesting. In actuality, my father helped me start my first job. Actually, it was he bought me a hot dog cart. So I was like in business from the get go.
How old were you then?
Uh, I was just turned 16. I was actually like 15, turning 16 when he
Yeah,
bought it
yeah.
because, I wasn't able to drive it myself
Yeah.
to where I had to set up. So, but as I turned 16, I was able to go on my own. But he would literally drive me to wherever we were setting up, and I would get out and make hot dogs all day. And it was
Where,
actually a good
what
business.
state is this?
This was in New York.
In New York. Selling
Yeah,
hot dogs in
yeah,
New York,
upstate New
right?
York. Yeah, well, yeah, not in the city, but upstate. So we did a lot of special events. I was still a kid going to school and stuff.
Yeah.
So um, we did a lot
Why
of
did
like softball games, parades, things
why
of that
did you
sort.
start that? Why did he buy that for you? What was his motivation or your motivation to want to start?
But, it was actually his idea. I think he had the idea. He wanted to sell hot dogs, but he didn't want to be
He
the
didn't
one
want to be
doing
the
it.
one
So
doing it.
yeah, so I ended up being his employee, I guess, even though it was mine, called the Bob's Wiener Wagon. Um, but like things get tense. I don't know if you've been in business with like family, and I'm a young kid, so I did it for a year. I was making great money. I mean, I'd make $1,000 in a day, at 16 years old. Um, so, but that friction between me and my father,
Owner and
uh,
employee.
yeah, it didn't go so well. So I like quit doing it, and I went and got a real job.
Well,
So
what
I
was
was like,
if you don't mind me asking, what was the big contention with you two? Not in the relationship, but what were you not liking about the job,
well,
or
like
was
I
it just
said,
your relationship?
I mean, I was, our relationship at the time, I'm just coming up, and we're both kind of like alphas, and I, I kind of wanted to do my own thing. So like when we started, we were I was under the impression that it was mine. I would get to do it when I wanted to. But then, if I was missing out on an event or something like
Yeah,
that, he'd be up my rear
yeah.
end. So
And that's tough at 16, right? You're like, Dad, I want to go play with my friends. I want to go
yeah, I
do
want to
this
go.
too.
I was getting into girls and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I was wanting to be on a date, and I was immature, obviously, for at that time. Um, so, but it was an good experience. I learned about business right off the bat and
What
how
was
that
he
worked.
doing at that point? What was your dad doing at that point?
My father he worked for the DOT in New York. Um, he would go around and inspect bridges, and
Okay.
that sort of thing, roads, traffic patterns.
After you quit your first job, what happened? What did you do after that?
I said I'm going to be. I don't even remember how it came about, but I went to work for a movie theater. I was into movies, so I was like, it seemed like a good fit. So I went to a movie theater that was in the mall. Uh, and it originally began as like a ticket taker,
Mm-hmm.
making popcorn and that sort of thing. But I soon moved up to projectionist, which was, like what all the cool kids did. So I learned how to, you know, do roll the film and through the projectors and go and hit the start times and all that. And I worked that job for 3 years.
How did you
It
make the
was,
transition from making $1,000 a day to
yeah.
not making $1,000 a day? Because I'm sure,
Well,
I mean,
again, I mean, I was a kid, so I didn't have a lot of expenses at the time.
yeah,
So it's not like, all the money I was making, I was blowing it as fast as I made it, regardless. Uh, I just needed a car. Still living at my folks' house. Um, it was, because the $1,000 a day wasn't consistent.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was like, in one day, like at a parade, like at an event. Normally, like the normal events, that was like every week were
Mm-hmm.
like softball games,
Yeah.
which I would still make $300-400
Mm-hmm.
in a couple hours. Um, so it was spread out. But yeah, I was only making at the movie theater like I want to say like $6, maybe seven
Yeah.
dollars an hour.
And the added bonus for you was that your boss was not your father as well.
Yeah, and there was fringe benefits. There was
And
popcorn and free
free
movies.
movies, right? That's always how it goes. Three
Yeah,
years of that,
for
that
me
brings
and
you
my
up
friends.
almost till 20. Is that correct?
19. Yeah. So um, I went to college. Um,
What was your
and
mission to go to college? What did you want to do, and what was your end goal?
I was on a path, coming out of high school, graduating. I wanted to be a state trooper, New York State Trooper. Um,
Was there anyone in your family that
and
was a trooper, or you just it was
nope.
something?
I
Yeah.
would have been first generation.
Okay.
It's just something that I wanted to do. Um, so I started college, uh, majoring in criminal justice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And during that first year, I had a longtime girlfriend that I actually met at the movie theater. And we've been dating for, quite some time since that like first year, 16 or 17. And um, during my second semester, she got pregnant. So at that same time, a casino was opening near an Indian casino
Mm-hmm.
near my house. And of course, they come out and they're advertising the positions are going to be available. And you're going to make all this money. There's all these great benefits and so on and so forth. Well, I kind of figured, I had to get a job
You had some
and
pressure
how
on
to
the
get a
other side.
job.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, because up in New York, you have to have a bachelor's degree to become a state trooper.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at 3 more years of college. Um, I didn't have time for that. So I actually borrowed some money from my father because we had to pay for blackjack school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still working uh, at the movie theater. So I was going to school for blackjack at like 5 in the morning, 5-hour days for 6 weeks. I think it was 8 weeks maybe, before the casino opened. And halfway through it, I was about to go back to college because that girlfriend and I separated, and she went off and didn't have a baby. So
Sorry,
I
didn't you said did not?
yeah, did not, yeah.
Okay.
So here I was, like, kind of at a precipice.
Yeah.
What do I do? Do I go back to school and do that? And I sat down with my blackjack teachers, And I said, I think I'm going to leave and go back to, on my other path. And they're like, no, they're like, you're so good, and I was kind of natural. Like I'm pretty good at picking up on things like really
Mm-hmm.
quick.
Yeah.
Um, and they said, they're like, you'd be great. You can make so much money, blah, blah, blah. Just give it a chance. Finish out the class. So I did. And I got in, to the casino, started dealing, started making money, which up there was good. Where I was, it was a lot better than what I was making at the movie theater. But for a time, I worked, both.
Both.
I
Yeah.
went, part time at the movie theater, really just to kind of keep my fringe benefits of
Yeah.
popcorn and free movies.
Yeah.
But that didn't last long because working full time at the casino was draining, to say the least.
Yeah, I would say that movie theater might be a little more relaxing. I mean, it probably has stressful
Yeah,
times, but versus a casino where it's like being in a hotel or something, you always have to be on your A game and everyone's there for the best experience and you need to provide that for someone.
yeah, and especially dealing cards. You're always you're
Taxing.
on point all the time. You have to be paying attention to so many things that are happening. Uh, but that's how I got put on that path, and I never did return to college to pursue the state trooper, which like right about now I'd be close to retirement
I
and
I
fully
know. Isn't it a kicker?
fully
You look at some people now, they're 40, 50, and then they're retired. I'm like, oh, where did I go wrong? So many different ways, but
yeah,
we're all on
nice state
different
trooper
paths.
job. But no, the casino business, man, it's been quite a journey. Uh, I was in that for 27 years. I'm still involved with it, actually.
So
Um,
how has that progressed for you from you started at a table dealing and where did that take you?
well, again, I was young. I was, at the time, 19 years old. And the only reason I could become a dealer at that casino at 19, where most casinos were 21,
Mm-hmm.
is we did not serve alcohol
Okay.
uh, for the first several years because the tribe mothers, voted it down. They didn't want
Mm-hmm.
alcohol as part of the deal. So I was able to work at 19 years old, and I was the youngest dealer at the time in the whole casino for about 8 months, and then another kid came in that
Mm-hmm.
was younger
Mm-hmm.
than me. But and it's one of those things I picked up really quick. I got really good within the couple months I was in the high limit room all the time, dealing high limit blackjack, and I was making good money for my age. So I screwed around, and if you know the casino business, it's a party atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
and did a lot of partying. So from there, dealing. What was the question again?
Well, how did you move up in? I mean, you look at the movie Casino, like to the eye in the sky type thing. Like, did you stay? You said 27 years, a dealer for 27 years, or did you become like
Oh no,
floor boss, those sorts of things?
yeah. I mean, I've been as high up as an assistant casino manager, um, but what happened was, so you get bored dealing one game. You can't just deal blackjack all the time. Well, at
Mm-hmm.
least not me.
Mm-hmm.
I got really bored. So I started picking up all the other games, craps and roulette, all the baccarat games and stuff like that. So as I was dealing craps, again, I got good really quick. I think, so we're talking 93. So like 97, I got, I was on a crap game. Like I said, you kind of become a prima donna. They always say that, like casino dealers are prima donnas. And, you think you're on top of everything. shit don't stink. So I got into a tiff with one of my box persons over the way I was dealing. And we had already made plans, me and a couple other dealers, that we were going to, he actually, my friend told me about the casino boats in Florida.
Yep.
And I didn't know anything about them at the
Up
time.
to this point, you've been in New York the whole time.
Yeah, I've been at this one casino. And had I thought about movement, not really. I mean, we spoke about going to Vegas. I had some friends already at that point that had left and gone to Vegas. Some had gone to like Detroit open casinos there. Some had gone to like Connecticut, Foxwoods. But I didn't know anybody that went to Florida. And my friend told me about the boats. So I was like, I got into this issue that this one box person had with me, and I was like, you know what? I'm going now. I'm going to check out Florida. So I went down on vacation, booked a flight, stayed in Orlando. The boats were in Cape Canaveral. I went over there and tried it out. Went on the boat. First of all, I'd never been on the ocean, on a boat. So I didn't know what the hell to expect. So I was like, I just want to make sure I was good with it. And went out there, they put me right on a table and audition. They call it an
Oh,
audition.
okay.
So, and you go on there, and you deal a few hands like on a live game.
How did you feel for that audition? That when you're out of your state, you're on a boat. This is
Yeah,
new territory for you. How did you actually feel? Even though, what did you say? You're a prima donna. You were a prima donna in New York. You go down to Florida.
yeah,
How did you actually
you
feel?
know. I was big stuff up there. Now I'm like nervous. I'm on a boat. My legs are wobbly. I'm sweating bullets in front of these people. It was like dealing drunk is what it
Yeah.
was like, you know.
Totally
But apparently I did a real good job.
yeah.
So I went back. I enjoyed the rest of my vacation, and I went back to New York. And within a week, they called me and said, come on down. The job's yours. And they were making real good money because now I'm more than doubled my income by that move. Um, it's a smaller boat, and it was hard to get in on these boats.
Mm-hmm.
They were taking people from Vegas, from far away as like England and stuff, because it was probably the best paying dealing job in the country. And so you had to have all the games. You had to be very proficient. You had to
You
have like
mentioned the
a few
games, and
years
I want to
experience.
ask this, sorry, about in New York. How difficult was it? You said it's necessary because you couldn't do blackjack the whole time. How difficult was it to transition from, like, does a casino generally offer you some like training, or is it just something you have to watch? You may even have to play and say, I need to get some experience with this. How was the transition from table so that it gave you the experience you needed to go down to Florida?
Well, some games, you can train on the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, at our casino, you had to pay for the games, but you also, in return, you got a raise to your base pay. So
Mm-hmm.
the way you get paid is, your base rate plus tips, and the tips are figured out on it's different places, but there it was like on an hourly.
Mm-hmm.
So they pooled all the
For
tips,
that
and then they
hour.
divided it by all the hours worked, and that was great. Um, so craps, you earned $1 more per hour on your um, base
Mhm.
rate because it was the most difficult game there is in the casino to deal. Uh, so once you were on the crap schedule, that's what you were. You were a craps dealer that sometimes went and dealt blackjack or went and dealt roulette. All the other games like roulette, baccarat, hideout, stuff like that, it was a 25-cent base. So you could max out on your base. I think there the max was 725. So I maxed and I still had more games,
Mhm.
but I couldn't earn any more money because it was maxed out.
So how they max the games in terms of difficulty, what is the difficult part of it? What makes a game? How do they define the difficulty of a card game for the dealer?
Well, probably the moving parts. In craps, there's a lot of moving
Yeah.
parts. Blackjack is pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the poker games are pretty straightforward. What we call novelties are like Let It Ride, Caribbean Stud,
Mm-hmm.
um, big six wheel, whatever it is. Those are what they consider novelties. Pretty much anybody can deal them once you know the basics of gaming. So those ones you would learn on the job. You don't really necessarily go to a class. Maybe you go to like a 2-hour thing if it's something you never dealt. But usually they're like, get on the game and deal it. At the time, like at my first casino up in New York, it was a lot of Atlantic City guys that opened our casino. And back then, things were done a little differently than they are now. So
So
there.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, did you find things were fair? Like, if you can say fair for the dealers, was
Fair.
it fair for you? Was it right? Or you just, this was the job you were doing and it was good?
Man, it was different. It was a culture shock for a lot of people, especially up in that area, because it was mostly a rural. The casino was located in like a rural area between two medium-sized cities,
Mm-hmm.
being Syracuse and between like Syracuse, Albany, Syracuse, Utica. Um, a lot of people weren't used to that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of union workers and stuff like that up there. Man, that stuff didn't fly at this casino, especially with these
I
guys.
got a card. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I seen dealers just like walk off the table and just leave. Throw their badge on the ground. I seen a guy punch out one of the pit managers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the pit managers, they were rough. You had to have thick skin because they would ride you and give you a hard time. So yeah, when I say it was different, it was very different. I used to get kicked in the shins a lot.
From under the table. I never even thought of that.
Yeah,
That's
the
funny.
pit manager come by and like kick in if you were losing like a lot of money. He'd be like, "Can't you win a hand?" Kick you in the shins. If you lose this next hand, that's it.
So did that make you become a better pit manager yourself? 'Cause
Oh yeah, it was more about learning what not to do, than what to do. I saw a lot of, and I know how that made me feel
yeah.
at the time. It's kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I had kind of the old school where procedures really mattered. And then as I grew throughout my casino career, things kind of shifted to more on customer service was more important than procedures,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at the time, it was like procedure, uh, win money. And then it became, they were more confident in the odds of the game and winning by keeping the players there and keeping them happy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there was a shift in the whole industry where that old school kind of, mean pit manager, like standing there and
That
not
must have
talking
been
to
a
you.
hard transition for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's people that are out there that still I don't think have transitioned fully, but they've had to. Things are much better now than they were back then. It was, I was a kid, so I didn't really know any better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just thought this is the way it is. I've had pit managers come to me. I was losing. I'm doing blackjack, and they said dump the shoe. I'm like, what does that even mean? I'm like, I don't even know what that means. It's like, if that shoe don't hit the floor in 2 seconds, you're going to the office or whatever. I was like, okay. Whoops, the shoe got dropped on the floor, cards everywhere. Oh, sorry. We got to shuffle and start over, yeah. Yeah,
Knocked them
things
off
like
their
that.
kilter, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, so I went and going to transitioning down to Florida on the
Mm-hmm.
casino boats. We're in New York. We're wearing tuxedo shirts and bow tie. Everything's real tight. I went to Florida. Everything's really loose. Everything's islandy, right? So now we got silk, like Hawaiian shirts on, and
Uh-huh.
we're dealing with open collar. It's real comfortable. I think we wore khakis. It was way more laid back. Uh, it was a total shift, total change.
Did you get
So
any friction leaving New York from anyone, whether your work or family or
no,
friends?
in fact, well, a little bit. I mean, they're like, where are you going? Why are you doing that? So I was like, hey, uh, we had plans. So the guys that told me about the boats,
Mm-hmm.
they stuck around from New York for about 6 months. So I kind of went down there, set up shop, got a, I had my first place was a condo right on the beach, Cocoa Beach. And that was beautiful. Totally furnished. All I had was my, whatever I could fit in my truck at the
Yeah.
time. That's what I came down with. Um, and like I said, it was a totally different feel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Young kid, I'm a new place. What was I, 23 at the time? Yeah, 23.
Just a young pup.
Yeah, and the partying was even harder when I got there. So it was even more because it's different. Like where I was coming from a 24/7 casino, it was open 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
On the boats, it's a day trip. You'd go out for two, or I think at the time we went out 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night. But you all quit at the same time.
Yeah.
So the boat closed, came back,
Where are
and
we going?
first thing you did is, yeah, you're at the bar. You're next door. Everybody. So it was a different scene. But I brought a lot of the guys that I worked with in New York. I said, this is great. Come down. I'm making a ton of money. There's no snow to
I know,
contend with.
eh?
It's like paradise. Um, so a lot of people came down. I end up a friend of mine, a colleague that came down about the same time I did, but he came down in a supervisor role, and he was a supervisor in New York with me, or for me, and he convinced me into becoming a supervisor. So I did. I became a supervisor when the opening came up, and I started being one of those people that would sit box on the crap game and for the game. So I was learning different things, but I was still young. I was 20, 23, 24. I think I was 24 by that point. Um, and I picked up on it quick, like I do everything else. And we actually got bought out at some point in there because we started out as like Diamond Whale, and then the Sun Cruise bought us, which they were at the time the largest. They owned several boats throughout the state, Florida, and um, we got our old man. We got new management. New people came in, and one of the managers happened to be actually our casino manager happened to be a shift manager of mine from New York.
In New
Where I
York.
was last working. Like you see, this is like it's crazy because you say it's a small world. Like this business is even smaller.
Mm-hmm.
You might be working with somebody for years and then not working for them for years, and then like a little while later you're
They
working
pop up.
somewhere else with them again. Yeah, they pop up. It's happened several times to me. But this guy, he was hard nosed, uh, and you know
So when you saw him, you were not happy to see this guy, or at first you were like, "Oh,
Well,
okay,
I
we can
mean,
do this."
you kind of are because you know them.
Yeah.
You know, there's some connection to the past, but I knew how he was. I knew he was kind of, a hard ass, and he could be. But he was, he was one of those guys that was like, if you're not happy here, there's the door. We
Hmm.
only want happy people, right? He was just, that's how he was. Um, and, to that, like, I can respect it now. I know what he was trying to say, but he was part of that old school, but he was, I don't know, he was a little more human. In the beginning, we didn't have a close relationship. In fact, and this is where the story gets interesting, is um, I had a complete blowout with him where, I mean, I almost, like it almost came to blows, like
You're
right in the
20, you're
middle.
25. How old is this guy?
20, I was 24 at the time. He's like 60 something.
Okay.
Yeah, probably like early 60s. So yeah, we had a drag out blowout, and it was something stupid. It was just me being immature. Like there wasn't a lot of people on the boat. We used to have a jump list, is what they called it. So basically, if if they didn't need you based on the amount of people that were on the ship, they would send you home if you were on this list. So I wanted to go out with my boys and go
Everyone wants
drinking
to
or
be on the
whatever.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Hoping to be on
everybody
the
wants to
jump
be
list.
on
Yeah. Yeah.
the jump list, and they would let you know like last minute, just before they're about to pull the
Just
gangway.
hoping. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, man, you were jumping off the boat on the gangway to get out of there. But yeah, I mean, he kept me for no reason at all, and like we got in a huge argument. I mean, huge argument. Whereas, like, I went home and I was like, after you calm down and everything, you're thinking like, wow, I might get fired. You know,
Mm.
I might, reality sets in. You know, I might lose my job because of this. So uh, we were still mad at each other. He kind of took it personally, and I took it personally. But I decided at that moment that I wasn't going to give him anything to get me out. I knew I was going to get ridden, and I knew I was going to be challenged.
Hmm.
So I knew that I had to walk a tightrope. I just wasn't gonna. I wasn't going to engage in any activities that I didn't need to belong in. I was going to just do exactly. If he said something, I was just going to do it. I wasn't going to argue it. I was going to just do it the best I could. Um, and it was like a time of growing up for me, right? So
Did you?
I
Yeah,
was
you're just saying.
transitioning.
Did you have anyone to talk to at that point? Like, did you not confide, but like just seek
I
some
mean, there was,
advice in that situation?
yeah, there's guys that I came up with. There's a guy, he's about my age, maybe like a year older than me. He was also from New York, but he'd been down on the boats. He had gone to another on the West Coast, Tampa, like where I am now. Um, he, I looked up to him, and he would sit, we would talk about it. So, and he's like, man, you just better, walk the tightrope. Sometimes they're saying like, oh, you should go and apologize and this and that. And, I wasn't quite to that point yet where I wanted to apologize.
I might keep my
But,
mouth shut, but I'm not.
you know, I, uh, I just, yeah, kept my mouth shut. I kept my nose down, and I did work, and I worked really, really hard. I didn't, like, literally, there was nothing. I was so clean in everything I did. Um, and we didn't talk like at all. Like, we did not, other than unless it was 100% relevant, like him just telling me to do something, it was just me
Mhm.
saying, okay. and going and doing it. You know, we didn't engage. So that went on for about 6 months. And it was actually him, you know, that came to me and was like, he goes, you know, he goes, you don't know how close you were to getting fired. I go,
I think I know.
yeah, I do. He's like, he goes, I wanted to fire you so bad. He was, I was looking for anything, any reason to. He goes, you never gave me one. And he's like, because he did, you know, he would challenge me at times, you know, telling me to do stuff that you normally you wouldn't be asked to do, you know. And I was just like, okay, I'll do it. And he, I guess, was surprised by me, like impressed that
He
I
valued
didn't
your
crack.
work ability.
Right. He did, and he valued my work. You know that, like when I put my nose down and did it, I was committed and I was really good at it. You know, I would go and at the time, so like, you know, some of the things that you did in between cruises was every time you had to come back in, you had 3 miles to do everything, like close the tables and everything. So when you're closing the table, you're reading the rack, which is counting all the chips and inventorying them. So I was like super quick at that. Like I could read the rack and I would just rattle off the numbers. And he prided himself. He thought he was quick. So he wanted to start running with me because it would take 2 managers to do it.
Yeah.
And one would be calling out the numbers, one would be doing it and then adding them up. And I was like lightning, boom, 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 boom. And he wanted the challenge and I would always beat him. He'd be like, so anyway, so our relationship was kind of was better, right? Once he said that to me, once, you know, like then is when I apologized, you know, for my actions, you know. So I was kind of back in the saddle again, right? So I was in his good graces. Things went on, and like 6 months after that, the position opened up for assistant casino manager, and he was he came to me and said, I'm going to recommend you. And I was like,
imagine that, eh?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have thought that
a
6
year
months
earlier.
before, a year before.
Yeah, a year earlier, I was this close to losing my job, and then a year later, I'm like being recommended from the guy that was actually going to fire me, that I actually got in a big thing with. And of course, I got the job, pretty much uncontended, and I was the youngest that I know of to get that high of a position at that age. At 25 years old, I was in charge of the boat. So when he wasn't there, it was my boat. I like, we did everything. There was a lot. It wasn't just table games. Like, we told the boat when we're leaving. We told them when we're coming back. We said, we made all the decisions related to the operation of the boat. So like I did some in that 1 year's time, like some major growing up.
Did you find that not being on the tables, did you enjoy that more? Did you find that easier? Because there's a whole nother ball of stress that can go with that too, right?
Right. You know, I don't get stressed much. Like I'm pretty level, like even keel kind of guy. And that's why I think, you know, I do well in the high limit rooms and dealing with high, you know, amounts of money, because of just it's in my nature. It's just how I am. A lot of dealers, a lot of people get freaked out. You know, they see lots of money and they're just like, they freeze. You know, they're like a deer in the headlights, or they get shaky.
It's because you're
just
making
makes them nervous.
you're making $1,000 a day in hot dog stands.
Yeah, I had no problem.
It didn't phase you.
It didn't faze me, man. I was slinging hot dogs when I was 15. So, but yeah, I just didn't get fazed by it. But it's definitely a lot more going on behind the tables
Mm-hmm.
than you would think at the time. At the time, you know, when you're a dealer, you're looking back and you're like, what do these guys do? It's like they just stand there all day. They're not doing anything. You know, here you're pumping cards or whatever, and you think they're not doing anything, but then you get to that position
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, wow, there's way more to it than it appears. Um, you're just looking at it through a different lens, right? So you're not focused on just your game and the 5 or 6
Mm-hmm.
players that you have in front of you. You know, you got all of these. You know, so now your vision has to open up. You have to see everything. And he like took me under his wing, and you know, even before he put me up, you know, really after we made up, before he promoted me, you know, he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me, you know, and started showing me the intricacies and all this and the stuff you should be looking for. They taught me how to count cards, you know, because that was something I was going to have to learn to identify, you know, be
Mm-hmm.
able to see. So you got to learn how to cheat to catch the
Know the cheat.
cheats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it just like opened my vision, like you know, now I'm looking and noticing people's body language,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's a lot you can tell. You can pick up on just by their body language, you know, even with the dealers and with the players. You'd say something's going on over there, and you go and look. So I learned a lot during that time,
Is
and
did you catch some cheaters? Is that a big thing? Like, I mean, there's
yeah,
probably a lot who try it or think about it. Anyone who wanted $1 thought of an easier way to get it. But do you catch a lot? Is it?
in my years, I've caught several. I've caught card counters, including the main guy from 21, the
Mm-hmm.
movie,
Mm-hmm.
the MIT guy that really started the whole card counting revolution. Him wearing a disguise twice, 2 times. Parts of his team we've caught, and I've caught slot cheats as an assistant casino manager. I've caught people with fake money more than, geez, a bunch of times. The interesting one was the day of that I caught the slot cheats. Well, I didn't catch them. My surveillance person did, but I was
Mm-hmm.
the casino manager on the boat. I was in charge that day,
What is it
and
they're
these
doing
were
to cheat?
known. They were known cheaters. They were known. What they used to have is a black book. They called
Mm-hmm.
it the Griffin book. That went around to all the casinos. So if you made the book, you know, it means you've been caught before or were highly suspected of cheating, or you were blacklisted out of Vegas or whatever. And this was a team of 3 people, and they were in the book. But what they were doing is they had a pretty intricate way of doing things. So you know how slot machines are usually in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an older lady, and 2 like middle-aged like couple. So the older lady would sit at the end of the slot machines as a lookout, while the couple, the lady would kind of cover for her husband, and he would have what they call a slug or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like a jimmy
Okay.
that they would just stick down the coin slot, and they would give themselves credits. So they would trigger the mechanism
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
thought coins were going in there. So it'd give them a bunch of credits. Then they would hit the cash out, and all those coins would come out. the machine. So my surveillance person at the time calls me down to the surveillance room to check it out. And I looked, and definitely, yeah, that's what was going on. They were cheating. So I call my, like the vice president of gaming for all the Sun Crews, and I tell him what's going on. He's like, well, you got to get the device that they're using to cheat with. So as I'm talking to him, the surveillance is kind of talking with security, and the security guard kind of spooks them. He goes by the machines and spooks them. So they grab their buckets of coins and they go to the cashier to cash them out. So I immediately called him. My vice president is like, do not cash them out. Don't cash them out. So I go up there. I tell him, I'm sorry, we can't cash you out right now. We just have to review a few things, and we'll be right with you. So we try to get
breaks on the floor.
Yeah. So they go, now they've split up too. So they've separated. Now the two ladies are together, and the guy kind of goes off we had like a lounge with a bar and everything in the back of the boat. They got nowhere to go. It's not like a land-based casino where they could just went out the door. They got nowhere to go. They're out in the middle of the ocean. So we got them trapped. So they go, we tell the security not to lose sight of them. They go into the bathroom, and this is where we think they got rid of the Jimmy that they were using. But I tell the vice president, so I'm calling him back and forth, and he's like, you got to get that stuff. He's like, you got to get him alone and get that. And I'm like, all right. So I grab a couple of security guards. We find them. Now they're sitting at a table together in the lounge area. And I go to the security. I'm like, come with me. I go up to the guy. I said, listen, I go, can we have a word with you? And he's like, well, yeah, what do you want? I go, well, no, we'd like to have a word with you in private. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. I go, okay. So I go and I call the vice president. I'm like, listen, the guy won't go anywhere. He's like, he's refusing to move, to go talk to somewhere. He's like, listen, the vice president, he's old school Italian guy, right? Old school. I mean, you would think he's right out of like Goodfellas or something. He's like, listen, he goes, I don't care what you have to do.
Get him.
He's like, yeah, you get them over there. So I'm like, all right. So now I'm like, okay. Actually, the surveillance girl, because I was in the surveillance room when I was talking to him, she's like, what did he say to you? I'm like, I go, turn off the cameras. I go, I gotta go. She's like, what? I go, yeah, turn off the cameras to the back area. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So I go and grab a couple, 4 guys now, plus the security. And I go back there and I lean into him. I put my hand on his neck. I said, listen, I'm like, we need to talk to you. And over there, he's like, I already told you I'm not going anywhere. I said, I'm not asking anymore. I go, he's like, where do we got to go?
Sounds like a line that would be out of Goodfellas.
Yeah.
I'm not asking anymore.
Like, where do we got to go? I'm like, just over there, beyond those doors. So I get him. He walks over there with us. So we get him, we close the doors. And, we ask them for their stuff. We go looking through the purses and everything. And we find some paraphernalia, which is like what they call a slug. And it's on the end of a string. Like they're using like dental floss or whatever. And that's what they would trigger it with. That wasn't the exact thing they were using at the time when we caught them. But it's a cheating device.
Evidence, yeah.
Yeah. So we get them, we put them, the out there it's maritime law, right? So pretty much the captain is like the,
Sheriff.
yeah, the authority.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell the captain, he was kind of freaking out because we hadn't told him what was going on. Of course, I said,
Mm-hmm.
listen, just arrest him for now, and then we'll turn him in when we get back. And so they threw him in handcuffs. We kept him in this interior room that we had that could keep him alone at. Sometimes we put people there that got belligerent or drunk
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. That's kind of where we would hold people. It's like our little jail was just a room. So we had another guy that was general manager. He was considered,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't know anything about gaming. He came from like the hotel industry or something, right, or a restaurant, and so he didn't know anything about gaming. He was just kind of supposed to be like an in between, like departments, So we were trying to coordinate that when we got back to the docks that the police are waiting there. So we wanted to get them off before, debarking all the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
people. So I told him, I put him in charge of it, this general manager. I said, listen, make sure we get them off first, and then the rest of the patrons can go off. Well, one of the things they used to do, one of the benefits for our VIPs at the time was we would let them disembark before the general population, rest of the people would go off. So he's in the back and he's trying to hold off the VIPs to get these guys off first. Well, he's all stressed out. So one of the VIPs is like, let us off the FO, this and that. Come on, what the heck's taking so long? Blah, 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 razzing them. And so he was a British guy, he had that, that whole British like attitude. So he's telling him to calm down. The guy's like, F you. He's one of our biggest players. And this general manager says, F you, back to him. And anyways, we get him off. I'm outside with the police making a statement, telling them what happened and doing the statements. And I have one of my managers come over and he's like, hey, we have a problem. So-and-so, the general manager, he goes, told one of the VIPs, F you and this and that. And the player's pissed off and wants to talk to you. I'm like, man.
Now
I'm
you
like, I
guys
told
got
the cop,
another problem.
yeah, I'm like, man, what a day, right? So I'm like, great. So I go talk to the player. I told the cop, I'm like, can I give me a minute? So I go over, I talk to the player, I calm him down. He tells me what happened. So I call the vice president that I've been talking to all day. I said, listen, I go, this is what happened. I'm trying to give a statement and stuff. And so he's like, go take his badge. And I was like, what? He's like, get his badge. He's done. So thank you. He's done. I was like, can I even do that? Like, I thought this guy's like he's like another manager, He's like, yes. He's like, you're acting on my behalf. He's like, go take his badge and tell him.
Fired on the spot.
Yeah, on the spot. So I had to go over there. I said, listen, I said, I know this ain't easy, man. I'm like, but you gotta go. I need your badge. And he's like, all right. He knew he screwed up. And so he gave it to me. He left. I completed my deposition with the cops. And all this ended up being for nothing because 8 months later, they end up dropping the charges and nothing happened with these people.
What do you think? What do you think about people who try that? I mean, I'm thinking one, they're one, idiotic for trying, especially if you're in a casino where people are a little bit old school,
Yeah.
but also pretty brave.
It takes a lot of
Gumption.
yeah, gumption to pull something off like that. A lot of times what you'll see is simple things like somebody, when the dealer's not looking, if they got a losing hand, they'll be sitting on the side and they'll like pull their money back, or a part of their bet back. You'll see stuff like that. That's just like they're not trained cheaters necessarily.
Not thinking
There
too
are
much
some,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, there are some like sleight of hand guys out there that are really good at it. I caught a guy in a poker game that was keeping an ace, that basically
Up
an
his
ace up his
sleeve.
sleeve. Yeah, that when the cards went out, and yeah, he was hiding an ace out of the deck. And in poker, they count down the cards every like few hands,
Mm-hmm.
but he would know the pattern when they were going to count them, and then he would reintroduce the ace into the deck, or make the deck complete. By like, that's why you're not supposed to muck your cards, like throw them into the muck, is because there could be more than two cards there and unhold them. So everything in the casino that they do, all the procedures are for a reason. They're there to prevent or cheats, or catch them. A lot of other things. Let's see. A lot of times it's just dealing with people that become belligerent. They're
Mm-hmm.
bad losers, or they're intoxicated, they're drinking. And you're
How did you transition from that? Because, well, you said it was a couple years that New York introduced alcohol, but I mean, I can
yeah.
see one, there's a big difference in in the money they're making. There's a huge
Right.
turnover when alcohol is introduced. But how did you find the personnel, like the difference between the couple of years that you did? Was it a few years with no alcohol, and then with alcohol, and then going down to Florida where seemingly people are a little bit more lively down there?
Yeah, we're definitely more lively. I mean, I had dealers. Like I said, it was a different atmosphere. I had them like on the boat, sneaking alcohol on their breaks and stuff like that. One time, I caught a dealer on a crap table. I think it was New Year's Eve, and one of the waitresses brought him a bottle of champagne, and he's over there on the game drinking a bottle of champagne right out of the bottle. And I was like, geez. But at one point, even they allowed us to have a drink on the way back. Like at the end of the night on the night cruise, they allowed us to have a drink, a free drink on the way back. But yeah, now you kind of threw a whole different dynamic in there, right? Where people just be pissed off sober up in New York when there's no alcohol. Now they're pissed off and drunk from losing. So we got a lot of confrontations. I learned real quick how to diffuse the situation. I'm not like a little old lady either. So, I'm able to pretty much
back it up.
Put a fire out pretty quick. With the authority type personality, that's how I am. That's why, I had that cop demeanor, right? That I always wanted to be. So it's not as difficult for me to stake my authority. Although, I mean, I've gotten hit before. I've been hit at my job trying to break up a fight. I had to tackle people and put them on the ground. I've had to, put them in like a hold, like an arm bar or whatever, and carry them off the boat because they refused to leave. And at one point, that's like I was doing every job because like we laid off like the security, so I was doing everything.
So you did become a trooper.
Yeah, kind of like at times. I was doing a lot more, like the scope of my job. I mean, we used to count money. We used to do a lot.
How long
Then
did you
one of
stay on the
the,
boat?
man, I stayed a while. They made a movie about what happened to my boat, what happened to my boss. My boss, the owner of the boat, ended up getting whacked. And there's a movie called Casino Jack, starring Kevin Spacey. That's all about the whole time
Your
I
boat.
was there. I was on, the flagship boat, the main boat. And what happened was there was a senator or representative involved that kind of forced the sale.
I might have to watch this movie.
Yeah, could write it down. Casino Jack is actually a really good movie.
I think I watched it 2 years ago, but yeah.
Did you?
I think so.
It's a few years old. But what happened was, so the representative, I think from Ohio, he looked into some laws that a non-natural born citizen could not own a U.S. ship. So a U.S. born ship, if you were a non-naturalized citizen, you weren't able to own it. And my owner, Gus, was Greek. He's from Greece. He actually opened Miami Subs. That was his first company.
Did this senator have a dog in the race? Was there a reason for him to try to get?
Yeah. So now there's him. So there's a guy called Jack Abramoff, and another guy that was, Jack Abramoff he was a, what do you call it? The lobbyist. Mm-hmm. So he was the lobbyist. Mm-hmm. And there's this Adam Cadan, which was, he owned like Dial a Mattress or something like that. Anyway, it was a strong arm move, right? So they were going to force the sale, and this Adam Cadan was going to come in and buy it for pennies on the dollar, right? Buy it cheap. Well, they said, okay, you can't own this boat. We're going to allow you to sell it. Here's your buyer, this guy, and we're going to buy the whole thing for, like, I think it was 100 something million, 140 million maybe. Well, the original transfer was supposed to be like $7 million. I don't know the exact numbers. But they sent a fake wire transfer, a bogus wire transfer. Transferred all the boats into this guy's name. All this crap ensued afterwards, where while sitting, like, they went to mediation, right? So our main office was in Dania Beach, which is down by Miami. And while in mediation, because he wasn't getting paid, my owner, they got into an argument. You know, he's like, "Where's my money? Where's my money?" And one thing led to another, and my owner grabbed a pen and stabbed this Adam Cadan. Stabbed him with the pen. So next thing we know, we hear the news, what's going on. This guy, Adam Cadan, shows up to our boat. He's got a bulletproof car, bouncers or security guards. And they're like, everything's good, this and that. Well, all of a sudden we start coming up short on money. So we're coming up short. They're telling us, like, literally, we would have to go and pull money out of the slot machines in the middle of the cruise just so we had money to pay out and give it to the cashiers so they could pay out the people at the end of the cruise. It's freaking crazy. And then
What was the reason for that? Or is that just regular?
no, that's not regular. Normally they keep enough money inside the cage.
What was the reason? He just didn't have any money. He was
Well,
tapped
they were
out.
embezzling. They were taking their own money. They were stealing their own money. So they introduced this girl called, Miss Sun Cruise. And she was like dating this Adam Cadan or something. I don't know what their relationship was. But anyway, we would go in the count room at the end of the night. Our normal thing was we would go in, we'd lock ourselves in the room. We have money counting machines. We would count the money and we would figure out the win-loss for the day. And then we would give that money to the cage for the next day of business, whatever. And then they would, book it and whatever at the end of the week. Well, this girl would come in. So we're at the dock now. We're finishing up the count. She would come into the count room with a bag, fill it with the money, not, recording any of it, and take it. And we're like, this is when I got like super suspicious. I'm like, I know something. This is what's going on here. So after a while of them fighting, going through mediations and stuff like that, the next thing I hear is that her owner, Gus, was shot, gangland style, in Miami and killed. Come to find out, now we know it was the Gambino family out of New York that was hired that shot and killed him. Yeah.
I only watch this stuff on TV, man. What are you doing to me?
Yeah, I'm like living it. I'm like, man, I left New York because there's too much trouble up there. Here, I'm coming down. And so I go to my boss and I talk to him. I said, listen, I'm like, we see this stuff going on. Can we be held accountable? Like, can this come back on us? Mm-hmm. He's like, you're in the count room. You're seeing what they're doing. I'm like, yeah, of course it'd come back. Like, well, this is shortly after 9/11 too, right? So, and I had some family affected up in New York. I'm like, you know what? I'm like done with this. I'm like, I'm not gonna be a part of this. So I quit. I left. I went back to New York for a while, and I worked up there. I went to another casino. Actually, when I first went up there, I got into a contracting business with my buddy, became partners. That didn't last very long, but they opened another casino. So I went up in Niagara Falls, New York. So I went and opened that casino as a pit manager and worked there for like a year and a half. It was too cold, man. It was like in Buffalo and Niagara Falls, way too cold. My blood had thinned out over the years.
You kept your Hawaiian shirts in your suitcase.
Yeah. I was like, I remember too, it was like in February or March, and I came out to my car after a shift, and I worked nights. So I was getting out at 3:30 in the morning, and I go out to my car and I couldn't get in. It was like frozen shut. Yeah. I'm like, at that point, I'm like, forget this, man. I'm going back to Florida. But I came back to Florida. I said, and by that time, that was a couple years later, after all this stuff happened on the boats, and the family, Spiro, which was the nephew of the original owner, they were able to recapture ownership of the boats again. So when I went back, I didn't want my old job, but I wanted a job. So I told, I went there. Now there was my guy, casino manager, he had been fired or whacked like in the middle of this whole transition. by the other guys. So they brought in a new guy, and the new guy didn't really want me back on the boat because of my position. It's a high position. I'm like, listen, I'll deal. I don't care. I'll come in, I'll deal cards. He's like, no, I think it's a conflict of interest, blah, blah, blah. So my buddy made a suggestion. He goes, well, what if he goes and deals poker? Because poker is kind of separate from like the casino.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I guess I wouldn't have a problem with that. So I made a phone call to Spiro, the nephew. I'm like, listen, I'm back. I'd like to come to work for you again. He's like, yeah, whatever you want. Whatever you want. Come on. So, and at the time, poker was blowing up, right? This was the most money I ever made. What a move this was. Because this was like when Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker.
Mm-hmm,
It was on TV and everything's like, everybody's a poker player now. So
they
things were like,
they think they are anyway.
Yeah, they think they are. So things are flying high. And in those 4 years, 2 of the years I made over 6 figures just dealing poker. And the only reason I did make it 6 figures other times was because I was on pace for it, but I had switched jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, at the end of that last year, the dynamics here in Florida had shifted, whereas the dog tracks and stuff started offering poker. And at first it was okay because they could only do like $100 buy-ins and do 1-2 poker. We could do whatever we wanted, so we would get the good games. But then things shifted and they were allowed to go higher limits. The casino, the Hard Rocks started offering higher limit poker and everything. So now as a poker player, they're not limited to a 3-hour cruise to play
Mm-hmm.
poker. They can go play and leave whenever they want for hours on end. So we lost a lot of people, but we managed for a little some time. Oh, by that time too, I became an assistant poker room manager also, and dealer. So I was getting manager pay and tips. So I saw the writing on the wall, like this is like bad for our business.
Being diluted out, yeah.
Yeah. So the Hard Rock was opening table games. And that's when I decided I came over to Tampa to work at the Hard Rock on day one there. So I've opened 6 casinos over my time. Because I opened another one in New York more recently, 2017, in Schenectady. So I went up to New York for a year again. I went from a dealer at Tampa all the way to pit manager before I had left in 2016. And I left because my father got sick, got ill. So I left that job, went to New York. While I was up there, they were opening another casino. So I went and opened it, worked there for like 7 months. And then again, Florida was calling me and I came back down. And while, I wasn't going to come down and get the casino business. So I was like buying and selling cars. My buddy owns a dealership. So he put me on the, as a buyer,
Did you make a firm decision that you weren't going to get into casinos anymore at this point?
I thought I was done with casinos when I left in 2016. The casinos, it's like the mob, man. It's like once you think you're out, they pull you back in. It's like, because it's a fun business and it's treated me well. It's a different. Sometimes it's a drag. It can be, but it's really what you make it. It is a lot. It's living in the fast lane, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of drinking, and,
Partying.
it's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's just that kind of atmosphere all the time. So you become desensitized a little to it, right? It's your daily thing.
You're surrounded by it all the time, and you hardly notice it.
Right. So I thought I was out. I thought I was getting out a couple times. When that opportunity up in New York came about, I went there as a manager, as a good manager, help, open it up and get things going. I knew I wasn't going to be there a long time. And I had friends that were going to be there. Again, people that I've worked with and haven't worked with for like 10 years, and now I'm working with them again. I think there was one guy I hadn't worked with for like 20 years, and we were working together again. But yeah, so my intent was to come down, buy and sell cars, but I was kind of, I had a plan B. So I actually started taking the real estate course online while I was in New York for Florida, just as kind of like a backup. And the reason, I chose real estate, well, at first, I thought it was like, this is easy. Like, how easy can this be? So
flip some houses.
Yeah, I had a different, perception of real estate that I do now. I didn't really, and I think a lot of people don't respect what goes into it, because it's a lot harder than you think. So to be a plan B, yeah, there's better options, that you can make a plan B. I got stuck with a lot of cars. So I had like 6 cars at one point that just weren't, I wasn't turning them quick enough. So if you're not flipping them quick enough, you're not making any money. You just got that inventory you're sitting on. So I'm sitting on, $30,000 in inventory. And I'm not moving, I'm not making money, no cash flow. So I got rid of them. I ended up selling them all. At that point, I started, even before I got rid of them all, I started actually practicing the real estate. And one of the reasons I chose real estate is when I left Florida in 2016, I sold my home. And I had 2 different experiences. We had gone with a realtor that, my wife's friend referred us. And it was a terrible experience. It was just
not pleasant.
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. It was not what I would call a good experience. So we ended up firing her, and I said, I'm going to pick a guy, and I did a little research and found what I thought was a really good guy. He came, man, what a difference. It was night and day. Yeah. Like, this guy was really good. And it kind of like, at the time I remember saying, man, like,
I can do that.
I'd like to do that, especially be good at it, learn from having a bad experience, and see the difference in having a good experience. So it kind of sat in the back of my mind at the time. So I came back and then I started. So I was half-heartedly in the beginning of the real estate, doing that, but also still selling the cars. So it wasn't full time.
So you mentioned you're married at this point?
Yeah.
So what does your wife think about you jumping from here to there and doing this and that? I have a wife that doesn't look too favorably to that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, considering I've moved all over over the country a few times, right? So moved to Florida, then back to New York, Florida, back to New York. Going from this job to this job, this close to that one. Women by nature are very
wait a second, I need a pen. I need to write this down. Go ahead.
They need stability, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
believe me, I know.
They're nesters, right? They're nesting. it's just what they want. They want stability. They want that one house and grow up, you know, raise the kids and stuff. Me, I'm more like, you know,
Let's go to New
this
York.
is what I gotta do. I gotta go. Yeah. And that's literally like how I'll make a decision, you know. I'll be like, just do it, you know. So yeah, we've had our battles about that.
Yeah.
But the casino business was good to me. You know, I've met, like, I can't tell you how many celebrities, athletes, you know, I've dealt to the #1 athlete and the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan. You know, I was gifted something from Michael Jordan that I still have today. Huh?
I said, imagine that, eh? That would be nice.
Yeah. I have several that I've just sat down and had conversations with. Sometimes, you know, of Harry Connick Jr. I've met a couple times.
You
met him in
must you
Florida.
must have some good conversations. Like people are, I would say, I've played well, probably not a lot of poker and at the casino, but a fair share. That you have people that are on either the best of times, the worst of times, and as a dealer in particular, you may find you have some good chats with some of these people and get to know them rather well. Is that accurate?
Good chats as dealer, as even a supervisor, and as a manager. As a manager, like on the boat, the good thing was, you know, I could go. I was all over the boat, so I could go. I wasn't stuck to like one place. So, for instance, James Woods came on, and he was visiting his brother and his mother lived like in Melbourne, Florida. So it was right after Friday, or not Friday, any given Sunday, which he was the coach. And so I said, hey, like let's talk. So we went and I got him a drink and I grabbed the coffee and we went and sat in the cafe and talked for like 45 minutes, just having a regular conversation. It was things like that. With Michael Jordan, I was dealing to, you know, I was there for 2 days dealing to him. You know, and at first, you know, it's like kind of standoffish. Like he was just, you know, all business. But, you know, I inched my way in, kind of like you know, like a puppy you don't want does. You know, just kind of inched in there. And he eventually, you know, he kind of, you know, he got comfortable with me. You know, but most of the time and initially, Charles Oakley was with him. I was talking with him and joking and stuff like that. So, and it wasn't until Michael Jordan, he played very by the book, like perfect blackjack. And it came down to a point where, and by the way, he smoked cigars he's like a chimney. He's like constantly sitting cigars and he's sitting there on his phone. He's like leaned back in his chair and he's just kind of one-handed giving signals. There's a situation where I had a 2-up showing and he had a 14 and he tried hitting it. I stopped because now I know I've been dealing with him for like 3-4 hours. I know how he plays. He plays perfect blackjack. It's like, are you sure? And he's like, points even harder at it, but he's not really paying attention. He's like on his phone. And he's like, so I go, are you sure? He's like, so now he like looks and he sees that and he looks at my card and he goes, oh, he's like, he starts waving it off. You know, he practically spits the cigar out. He's like, oh. So I go, that's what I thought. So anyway, he wins the hand. He had a lot of money up there. He wins the hand. And he's like thanking me over and over. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. He goes, thank you so much. And I was like, all right. So now he starts engaging and talking to me. And we start talking about, you know, me, you know, like I knew he was into motorcycles and stuff like that. So we talk about that. we get to the end. What's funny is like he's known in the industry from the casino standpoint as a non-tipper, you know,
Okay.
and it's kind of arrogant and whatever. So, you know, I was in the back of the house in the EDR, and you know, I told people at the beginning, I'm like, yeah, I go, they got me on Michael Jordan's table. And, you know, they're like, oh, yeah, good luck getting a tip from him, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, it's no big deal. I'm like, hey, I got pissed. I'm like, I go, watch, I'm going to get tipped. Don't you worry about it. And they're like, yeah, you don't tip anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm going to get tipped. So at the end, you know, throughout the time he was there, too, you know, the casino has, like, the calendar girls and stuff. They're coming and signing stuff for them and bringing them all these gifts, calendars and whatnot. So he's coloring up. He leaves. He takes a couple $1,000 chips and throws them to me. He's like, "Thanks, Rob." He goes, "This is fun." He's like, he goes, "Here, do you want this stuff?" It's like the stuff they had been bringing him. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. I go, is that cool? I said to my manager. He's like, yeah, you want it? So I took it. And then the next day I was dealing to him too. It didn't go so well for him the next day, but yeah, he tipped me. And I was like, and it's still, people talk about it. They're like, they go, I know somebody he tipped.
Yeah, especially if he doesn't really tip, and then you're the guy.
Yeah, it was me. Yeah, there's a guy there that talks about it. He talks about it all the time still. It was like my hero moment. But I've gone and like I dealt to Verlander when he was dating, just when he first started dating his wife now, the supermodel, Kate. What the hell's her name?
You're asking the wrong guy, because I've been so far removed living in Korea. I try not to pay attention, but I know the names when I hear them. And
Yeah, well,
the
you know,
stories are great
obviously,
too.
like
Yeah.
Justin Verlander, obviously won the World Series a
Mm-hmm.
couple years ago. But yeah, like it's strange too, because I mean, there's been points where you know, we got TVs in there, and I'm watching a game on TV, and the starting pitchers are up there, and the hour after the game, he's at my table smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, this is like surreal.
Surreal.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff, but
So
yeah,
do you
I've
miss it?
gotten.
So do you miss it?
Huh?
Do you miss it?
Did I miss? Well,
Do you miss
here's the thing. I
dealing?
still, like I said, I'm still involved. Yeah, I deal now. I
Okay, you
went
still
back
deal. Yeah.
last year in September. They had an opening, a rare, like this casino too is very difficult. They've never hired outside dealers before.
What's defined
If
as
you wanted to
outside
be
dealer? Go ahead. Yeah.
like somebody experienced from another casino,
Okay.
right? So you either had to transfer in from one of the other Hard Rocks or Seminole gaming casinos, or you came up through a different position,
Work
right?
your way
So
up.
like you started as whatever, and then you came and got in that way. But they've never directly hired outside dealers from another casino in or open. Even though I wasn't, I mean, I worked there before as a pit manager. I was hired part-time. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't really do nothing at night. I'm like, I wouldn't mind just doing it just to be back involved. And, you know, on the weekends, it's not going to really interfere with my real estate. So give me something to do on the weekends, and I can be back in that, because you do miss it. You know, you miss that excitement, the atmosphere. You know, you've been in it all this time. So I was like, yeah, it's pretty, what do you call, loose, pretty, you know, it's not demanding. right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially me, it's nothing. It's like going out there and handing out flyers at this point,
Mm-hmm.
it's just simple. So I said, and it's good money too. I'll go out on the weekend and make $1,000, working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, and then I'm back doing my real estate Monday through,
So you got
well,
into real estate. You got into real estate, and how was it when you first got in for you to, feel the not the temptation, but the desire to get back into the casino as well? So it must have. I mean,
there was no,
was it tough? Was it a tough transition?
no, I mean, there was no desire really to get back in the casino at that point. I was doing something new. Uh, I can't say there was no temptation. I mean, there's always that temptation, but I didn't really think about it. I was so busy doing what I was doing. I'm so focused. Once I got the car thing figured out and got my money back from that, and I decided to focus on the real estate, things changed, right? Now I'm devoting all my time, my attention, energy, focus, everything on real estate, and you really need to,
Do you
right?
remember? Do you remember your first sale?
Yeah, oh yeah. Like actually, one of my first deals was a commercial deal. Actually a friend of mine, the guy that owns the car dealership that I hang my car tags on, my license with, and he had a shopping center that he wanted to sell, and I'm like, man, I go commercial like right off the bat. Like I don't even know where to start. Like all they've been teaching me is how to sell houses. So I had to do a crash course in commercial real estate, and I learned a lot, and it was good. Like I learned about cash flow and cap rates and ROI and all that stuff. So it was very beneficial, and that was like over $600,000 deal. And my first house deal was like a $500,000 house. I'm pulled towards the high money. Like even in the casino business, like I wanted to be where the big money was. I wanted that. A lot of people, they don't want anything to do with it. They're like, I just want to be on a little game over here. Leave me alone. Don't do it. I
Thrive.
loved it.
You thrive.
Yeah.
Thrive in that situation.
I love the pressure. Yeah. I love all that, the tense.
Would you say that is it the money or is it the stakes that are at hand in those sorts of situations?
I think it's the stakes more than anything. The pressure that's on you. Now you got like everybody's watching you, right? And you're like you have to perform. And I always thrived at that. Like in anything, in basketball or in sports or whatever, when the pressure is on, is like when I did
your best.
I performed my best, right? And so I live for those moments. I was that guy that wanted the basketball for the last shot of the game. I love that pressure. Having the bigger bet. Like I've been out there with $500,000 bets on one hand. $500,000 a guy bet. And I'm just like, it doesn't faze me at all. Like, all right, here we go. There's a house, and there's another house. There's a house. But yeah, so like I'm always pulled, even in real estate, I'm pulled towards that. I want luxury house. I want big deals, big money deals. And it's not necessarily about like the commission check or anything else. It's just that's what I'm drawn to. Yeah. I don't know why. I always want to be. I guess it has to do with like being the best. I've always had that drive. I didn't want to just be good at something. I want to be like the best at it. And it's usually just competing with myself. nobody's harder on me than me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I get hard on myself if I don't. Little like I don't know, I get OCD-ish. You know, I want things to be perfect, and that was actually one of the things that kind of held me up in the beginning of my real estate career. Is I want everything to be perfect, right? I wanted the perfect picture for my business card. I wanted the perfect business card. I wanted the perfect name. I wanted everything to be perfect. And sometimes I wouldn't release something unless it was perfect. Instead of just doing it
Mm-hmm.
and then learning as you go. I wasn't like that. Like I didn't have that. I wanted it to be perfect, or like right off the bat. But that's impossible.
Out of the starting blocks, you kept resetting yourself. You wouldn't go.
Right. You get held in one position. You get held. You don't start. Right. It's like a failure to launch type thing. Like you're better off just launching. You know, like Amazon. What do you launch? Selling books. Now look at what it is. You know, they just improved. So that was something I had to learn that I'm still learning. You know, I find myself still doing that sometimes where, like getting on video or doing a video or something, you know, I want it to be perfect. Or I want to have the right thing to say, the right message. You know, and you overthink it instead of just doing it. It's more beneficial to you. Even starting the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you might be able to relate to this. I don't know if you do or not,
Oh, I'm right down
but
that alley.
you
Start,
know, yeah,
record. Okay, do it again.
right. So like you probably wanted the first one, like how much did you research it before you did it, you know, and how many things you said, oh, I need this background that like you got, you know, I can't start it until I have a cool background or I
That's the
have this
truth.
particular,
That came out of my
right.
mouth. I'm not going to start until I get the background.
Yeah. Or I have to have this exact mic. I have to
Yeah.
have the new computer or whatever. Anyway, you're giving yourself excuses or
Yeah.
reasons not to start instead of just starting, you know? So like I made that decision a little over a year ago that I'm just going to start doing it. You know, I'm going to start just executing, put it out there. It'll get better as I go. And it's worked out. You know, we started the podcast. Like it took me from the thought of doing a podcast to actually doing it took like 7 months, 8 months, something like that, you know, because I thought about it and then I was like, I wanted to be perfect. What's it going to be about? This and that. And so it took a while. But then I was just like, you know what? And I kind of used like my host as like a crutch, you know, to help get over that initial fear. And that's why I have a co-host. You know, and I would use that as an excuse, like she's not ready and blah, blah, blah. Finally, I was just like, that next week, I'm like, can you do it on Friday? Literally, like next week we're starting. And we just started. And in the first episode, it was just the two of us. Next thing I know, I got, you know, guests and boom, just
The
took
show.
off. And it's gotten better. Like if you go back and look now from the first one, it's like, God, it's so raw. And just sitting there like talking to the end where, you know, we had the owner of a national chain brewery on, and we're being asked to go to these places, and that evolved too. You know, it's not like yours where you're in your own studio, which was the plan in the beginning, but we had to shift because we started getting invited to places like come here to our place of business and we'll do it from here. So we had to become versatile. We had to, you know, so we changed everything. We don't have a setup like yours where you walk up, have lapel mics and, you know, tripods and everything. We're going from place to place. But that initially, and my co-host is also a realtor, was designed for a purpose, right? And the purpose being was to get out of obscurity, right? To become an avenue to become known, liked, and trusted in your area. So it was a way to get in front of people, to like become, even though it's not about real estate, and that's by design because there's enough podcasts about real estate. So I said, well, what's the other thing that's relevant? Why don't we make it on Tampa, and make it about other people, about other businesses, and we'll just be the people that host that, and they'll get to know us. And at times we drop a little egg, we say, yeah,
Yep.
we're, realtors or whatever, we'll mention it. But this allows us to do a couple things that other realtors can't do, especially if you own a show. And when it comes to like target marketing with Facebook and stuff, we've figured out ways to utilize that for our real estate business, not up front and in your face, but like in the background,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all those people that have seen our podcast or listened to our podcast, we can, through Facebook advertising, we can target them.
Target marketing.
Right?
Yeah, Facebook's
Yeah,
probably an underutilized and cheap, relatively cheap form of advertisement.
right. And I've just started doing a lot of it with real estate. Like I've really ramped up my target marketing strategy with Facebook.
So Robert, what is your typical day now? Like, so you have casino, you're finished with dealing cars. And so what is you mentioned it when we first started chatting in the beginning that you're into a few different things and you're kind of busy. So
Yeah.
what does your typical week look like?
Well, I still would like to, if the right situation comes along, I'd still like to buy cars again. And right now, it's not a good time to be in that business, but the casino thing is kind of on a hiatus because
Mm-hmm.
of the COVID and everything. I mean, they're open, but me being part-time and just on the weekends, it's kind of like I'm not needed right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't need it anyways. Like the real estate's just too busy. Right now, I don't know if you're familiar with like what's going on in the States as far as like real estate, but it's booming.
No,
It's crazy.
I was talking to my aunt yesterday, 2 days ago, and she said the same thing in Canada. Don't buy a house. It's a seller's market.
It's a seller's market, but it's also a buyer's market because of the low interest rates right now.
Okay.
Right. So the interest rates haven't been this low in like, I don't think forever. So the buyers, even though the sellers are getting top dollar for their house, in the long run,
The buyers are winning out too.
with the interest rates where they are, the buyers are saving money too, right? From like a year ago, where it was up almost 1% on the interest rate, even if that house was $15,000, $20,000 cheaper, you're still paying less now because that interest rate is that much cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a lot of that. So there's a pent up demand too. So there's a lot of people that have been pent up for the last few years that have been waiting for the right moment to buy. And now with the interest rates where they are, like I said, it's a good time to buy. I do take on buyers. I do both sides. I do selling, listings and buyers. But I focus all my energy and efforts into listings. I just rather work with sellers. Buyers can be time consuming and, some people prefer buyers, but me personally, I like working with the sellers. I like getting the house. Right now, for instance, like over this past week, I've been really busy. I kind of wasn't going to do this anymore, but it was a referral, and the house needs like a lot of stuff, a lot of updates,
Mm-hmm.
right? They didn't update it. It's a nice house, but the kitchen is outdated. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole bunch of outdated stuff. It's kind of all different colors on the walls and everything. So I went in and I designed out a kitchen. I designed, you know, all this stuff. I hired contractors. I took care of everything. Basically, the guy left. He's like, take care of whatever it's got to be taken care of. And I said, listen, I go, this is what we need to do. If you spend this much, you will make this much back, right? If we were to sell the house right now, this is what it's worth. If we put in X amount of dollars and we do these necessary upgrades, this is how much you can expect to make. So basically, I help sellers be their own flippers,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this house, for instance, would have probably been bought by a flipper. It would have been bought by somebody at a cheap amount. They would
Renovated
have
it.
went in there, they would have blew out the kitchen, they would have done all the upgrades, and then they would have sold it for a profit.
Yeah, but
So
people who own those houses for so long have little idea what needs to be done in them, and probably
right,
don't care
because
in putting in the
exactly,
effort.
they know, yeah, it's been fine for them, right? You know, they don't realize, you know, it's not ready for resale. So I kind of enable them to do that, flip it themselves. So this guy's, you know, going to make $2 to $3 on his money in return of what he's invested now. So prior to him doing this, I'd have been lucky to list it at 260 and get around 250. After, we're going to be right about 300, and that's with minimal investment, as minimal as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I've been busy with that, and that takes a lot of time too. So I like to work with new builds. For instance, I got a client, he's an investor, and I've done some business with him. What's funny is I got him out of a like a local app. They call it Nextdoor app. I don't know if they have that in South Korea, but it's usually just like for neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to rent a property, so I took on his rental, and out of that, well, come to find out, that's what he does. He buys and holds and rents properties. But I've also gotten 3 New York Yankee clients that are all coaches for the Yankees. From that one rental, I've sold, like 3 houses, and I'm working on 3 more. And my investor himself is going to buy like a bunch more. So I've convinced him to go to new construction, because things are, right now it's tough because the resale market is high,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still selling like super fast. So any decent house that's out there, if you want a clean house, which he does, because he's not a flipper, he's like I said, buy and hold. He wants to buy it and be able to put minimum amount of money into it and just put a renter in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I said, listen, like we had an offer in one house, and the roof was bad. So it fell through. I said, why don't we go to new construction? And this is after we lost out on 2 other houses. I go, let's go to new construction because everything's new. I go, you don't have to worry about the roof. You don't have to worry about any of the appliances, anything. I go, it's new. It's under warranty for 10 years. I go, and you're going to start turning a profit right away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, selling new construction is pretty simple. There's not a lot. You know, I'm basically bringing them to the builder.
Mm-hmm.
We're filling out the forms. We're doing that. And they almost have like a liaison, somebody that takes the ball and runs with it. I just got to show up and make sure all the paperwork's good and whatnot. So it's not a lot of running around, right? I'm not taking them from house to house to house to house. So it's a little bit better in that sense. So I've started shifting towards more luxury, looking to sell for listings, luxury homes, and for buyers, I'm marketing to new construction, right? Because I'm not going to be going and taking them to 20 houses just for them to say, I want to see a few more. You know, that takes a lot of time. So, you know, I've transitioned through this period of COVID, you know, and really learned a lot about like target marketing and some other marketing stuff that I'm now using. Like one of the things you found me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a great resource.
Yeah, and I've started using LinkedIn to seek business. So there's a lot of people, for instance, from New York that are leaving New York, New Jersey, you know, that tri-state area, and move to Florida.
Don't want the cold no more.
Yeah, cold, taxes, and, or they just don't want to be in the city anymore. Yeah. So what I've done through LinkedIn is I've gone to agents up there, and instead of them, normally what happens is they get a client that says, I'm moving to Florida, sell my house, right? And then so they post somewhere that they need a referral for a client that's moving into a certain area. I said, well, I'll head it off and I'll just make my offer to those agents and tell them I'll pay them a referral fee of, you know, a high referral fee, 30%, beating normal standard is usually like 25%. And they'll think of me when they have somebody moving down, and that's the whole thing. I said, and sometimes people come down here first to check it out, you know, and they might drive around with me to different places or reach out to me to see a place, and then tell me they have a house to sell up in New Jersey, and now I need an agent up there that I know can sell their house quick so they can buy a house here from me. So I've used LinkedIn, has been great for that. Also for like meeting like divorce lawyers and estate attorneys and stuff like that as referral partners, you know. So that's all within the last year I've been building LinkedIn. I'm well over 2,000 connections now, but I think there's a lot to be done.
Tapped into.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely an underused resource.
Robert, what has been the biggest difficulty for you in your work?
In
from
estate?
Your life? No, from your life experience, work.
It's been the most difficult.
What has been a challenge for you?
Interesting question, because I think each career has had different challenges.
Well, even when you were speaking, I was thinking like in the casino, it's almost similar. Real estate and casino, like I see as a casino floor boss, and also in between these the dealer and the player and the buyer and the seller, and you're maneuvering all these people in a very strategic way.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely similarities. There's some skills that you would use, especially like the way you talk to people, like customer service wise, and maybe diffusing certain situations, kind of be able to negotiate things, right? And that's one of the things you did as a pit manager. Not everything was black and white, you know. You operate in the gray area a lot of the times, you know, and that's what people don't realize, you know. So you try to make the best of the situation. But challenge wise, I guess is probably within myself, you know, just having like super high expectations of everything that I'm doing. Sometimes, you know, I think they're achievable, you know, but, you know, I think just being hard on myself and challenging myself to always to like I've gotten in my own way, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in a way where I've started over. Like I could have done what everybody has done in the casino business, or most people do, that have aspirations of being, you know, high up. That kind of hasn't been my thing. I've always known there was a ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I could go on to be the vice president of the table games, you know, but I'm still your max salary, you know, you're going to be, there's a ceiling, right?
Yeah.
With real estate and doing something on your own and benefiting, you know, from that, from your efforts.
Mm-hmm. Fruit of your labor. Yeah.
Yeah, is something that's always intrigued me. So I am my only limiting factor as far as being in business for myself, being in real estate. But it's been tough. It's not like I thought it was going to be, you know, and I thought it was a plan B. Like, I'll just go and sell a few houses, I'll be good. It'll be a good thing to step back on. It hasn't been, and now it's become like my mission. You know, it's one of those things where I just I can't stop. Like I have to make, like I have goals, like high goals.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to be the best. You know, I look at the guys that are the best in my industry and in my area, and that's my goal. You know, it's not to just sell a few houses, be successful or whatever. I want to beat that guy. You know, I want to beat that person. So it's become almost an affliction.
If in real estate, then we'll keep it to that. What is something, a joy or something that you like the most about your job?
What I like, what I love, it even like the other day, you know, this guy I'm doing this house for, he texts me on my phone, and you know, we haven't seen the fruits of the labor yet, right? We haven't sold it
Mm-hmm.
because I haven't put it on the market yet. I got people knocking on my door to come see it, but it's not ready. So he texted me and he's like, what do you say? Something about me being the best, right? And that to me meant more. So he said, thank you for the hard work. And I said, you know, you're welcome. I want to do a great job for you. He goes, that's why you are highly recommended by my friends, best of the best. Now that is what it was for me. Like, I'm not even thinking about the money. I'm thinking about doing like a great job for him.
The best that you can.
Yeah, being the best. You know, so that, you know, that for me was like, is what it's about, you know, just being the best.
Thinking, Robert, from 16-year-old with your dad on the cold streets of New York. Now,
I only did it in the summer.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no, I lie. I did do it once in the winter.
Hey, I'm from Nova Scotia. It's not very hot ever. To your journey through work, how has work helped you through your life?
Well, I mean, like going back to that story of growth and maturing, you know, and like at the casino on the boat when I had that incident and that growth as a person, Um, I could have got, I might not gotten that anywhere but at work, right? So that might, who knows? Like, what have I done? That gives you purpose. It gives you a reason to grow up and do things.
Couple more questions, Robert. How do you find
Yeah.
rest? What do you do in your rest? When
What's that? Rest.
Right.
Well, it's rest.
Uh,
This is rest.
what
Being on here with you is rest. Because
I've
right now
enjoyed this very much.
I should be at the house, making sure my
So,
cabinets are going in.
but
But
how do you get rest? I mean, if your wife is around, like how do you, how
I
do you
try.
book it in, or how do you?
That's like the best thing you probably do is like do time block, and I try to, but it never works. It's just because some things come up, things happen. People call you at different times. And, there's different fires to put out. And in my, I'm doing the podcast as well. I had other aspirations as well outside of real estate, and with business. Excuse me. Like I want to do, there's other businesses that I want to start. I'm one of those guys that just isn't gonna stop. Like I'm not gonna rest on my successes. Once I get where I want to be with the real estate, there's something else. Like right now, I just have to keep my focus on doing what I'm doing. As far as the real estate, it's tough because other opportunities come around, or I think of something else, and I want to shift some focus towards that, and it's just not the right moment.
So there's no rest.
There's no rest. there's no. I'm always, even when I'm resting, if I'm watching TV, I'm not even paying attention to it. I'm thinking about something, or I'm on my phone replying to an email or something.
I mean, it's good though. I mean, there's you do take we sleep, right? And you sit down and eat. There is rest involved in some of those things and playing on our phone. And there's other people who just do it too much, right?
Yeah.
They just,
I don't know.
don't have that
I don't know
drive.
how.
What is your advice for those people, or people not that are not doing because they're just discouraged, they're distraught, they're in between jobs, they don't know what to do with themselves. What's your advice, Robert? You've seen a lot of people from highs and lows to the good and the bad.
Well, one of the things that intrigues me is passion, right? And I think you got to have a passion for something, right? Maybe not. Maybe your passion is cars. Yeah, I'm a car guy, so I thought I would sell cars. But I enjoy it. Is it my passion? I don't know. My passion is really helping people, like helping people buy a house or realizing that dream, right? In the casino, from a manager standpoint, is helping those people achieve being the best at dealing, whether it's dealing or whatever it is, helping them be that. People that are out of work right now, it's just figure out your passion, or even watch people that have passion. Like, I don't know if it's necessary for like motivation. Like one of the things I do in the mornings is I'll watch a motivational video. Whether it's Gary Vee or somebody like that I see that's doing it, and he doesn't ask a lot of people. Sometimes it's just a matter. His advice is like save money, yeah. Or go to a garage sale and then resell something online. So they're very attainable goals, right? I look at David Kogan or Goggins. David Goggins, his story and his motivation. I think you gotta want more, right? and sometimes work is the only way you can get there. If you don't like your job, if you hate your job, if you despise it, you shouldn't be doing it. Somebody else will do it. The world's not going to end. Go find your passion. Even if that means not having a paycheck for a minute. Eventually it'll pay off. That's how I feel.
Robert, where can people find you? How can they get in contact with you, especially if they're anywhere in the States that are thinking about coming or leaving Tampa?
Or leaving? I don't know why you would leave. Look at this. Look at behind me.
I know. I want to come.
Why would you want to leave that? No, I've done it twice, right? Or three times. Yeah, twice. Yeah, I've done it twice. But
how can they contact
you can find me. I'm all over. You can find me at tamparob.com. Email me at sold@tamparob.com. You can find my podcast. This is tampapodcast.com. God, where else? I have everything. I'm all over the place.
Find you on LinkedIn.
Probably
Instagram, Twitter, all those.
Yeah, Instagram. On Facebook, I think my handle is Real Estate Rob. They wouldn't let me put Tampa Rob, but I think I got Tampa Rob eXp on Instagram. So,
is there anything?
Tampa and Rob. Just remember that.
Tampa Rob.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to say or add based on our conversation, or you're thinking about in terms of work?
In terms of work?
Or anything else? Yeah, or anything else.
Yeah, I mean,
not that I looked at the time at all once, just did now. We've been talking for 2 hours and 45 minutes. You have now broke a record, because this is a Yankee record.
Has it been that long?
It has.
I'm a bit of a talker.
I'm sorry for taking your time. But is there anything else you want to add?
That's all right.
No,
it's refreshing. Just like I say, find your passion. If they say if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. I kind of feel like that. You don't know what path is going to take you down. Here I'm not a state trooper about to retire like I thought I'd be. It took me on a totally different path, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. So, yeah.
Well, that's why I listen to Gary Vee too. And he's like, well, just imagine if you could go back, you go to heaven, you go back and you find out you were a state trooper and you got shot your first day at work, or then 3 days later, right? And then you look at this life and then now you have something totally different.
Yeah, it's definitely, the totally different path. And yeah, like you said, now that I think about it, I'm like, man, I probably would have been like sitting in the car eating donuts most of the time anyway. But I'd have been bored out of my mind.
We truly appreciate state troopers all over.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But yeah, it'd have been definitely different life.
In closing, Robert, why do you work?
Why do I work? What else am I going to do? I don't know. What else am I going to do? I actually enjoy it as much as people like to complain about it or whatever. I think a lot of people realize it now too, especially like in the last few months. People want to get back to work, right? They've been, out of work because of COVID, and prior to that, in February, they're complaining about their job, and in May, they're like, I just want to go back to work. I just want to go back to work because it's a part of you. It's a part of who you are.
You touched on it, and I think my dear wife and I, we bought our first home 3 days ago. And
3 days ago?
Yeah. Apartment, not a home. I mean, not a house, but an apartment. And as you and I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't care so much. I'm like, we can come here, we can go there, it doesn't matter. But the joy that it brought my dear wife, she's been asking me for a home for 14 years.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, we moved back and forth from Canada to Korea, but the on her, the burden that represented of not having that security or that the nest, I saw it lifted that day, and it's all thanks to our real estate agent
Yeah.
who set
Hey,
that up.
and we know that as real estate agents, we might look like we're talking to you, but we're really talking to her. Like, to sell anything, right? Um, you sell with emotion, and you back it up with logic, right? And this is where the guys come in. That's where you make it logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
You hit the wife with the emotion of it, because that's how they're going to make their buying decision.
Yeah.
And you back it up with logic, because that's how the guy thinks. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
She was overwhelmed with joy, and she still is, because the process isn't done, but she's quite happy that we started it.
Well, it was logical for you, because now you have a happy wife.
And
You have a happy life.
anyone out there listening, buy the house. Buy the house.
Right.
Buy the
Yeah.
house. So I appreciate it, Robert. Thank you very much, sir. And you've been a gentleman through this whole thing, and you've brought me down a road that I will not soon forget.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No, I truly did. Thank
Yeah,
you,
go
sir.
watch Casino Jack. Remember,
I got it right
watch
here,
it.
right here.
Yeah.
If it's not too late now, I
All
might
right,
watch
man.
it now. Thank you, sir. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.